I know I'm a bit late to the party here, but I never got around to seeing The Ironclaw when it hit theaters. And I was going to check it out on Amazon, maybe rent it or something, but with all the content that has been dropping the past few months, it's just gotten pushed further and further back. And so when it came to Max last week, I finally found some time to sit down and enjoy this movie, and I've got to say, it was well worth the wait. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and tell a friend if you haven't. And if you're new here, check out the channel and let me know what you think. Let's dive into The Ironclaw. Full disclosure, I am not into professional wrestling really at all. I used to watch a fair bit when I was a kid, but that was years ago. I am, however, an avid sports fan, so naturally this movie appealed to me from the get-go. I'm always a sucker for tragic yet inspiring sports dramas, especially those derived from true events. Now, admittedly, I do think a vast amount of these based on true story sports films really fall into the mediocre at best category. They're typically good for one viewing and then you kind of just forget about them until the next one comes along. But there are some great ones out there. Moneyball, Rush, Remember the Titans, Warrior, just to name a few. And I'm happy to report that Ironclaw falls into that latter category. This movie is so profound, and I think the reason it works so well is because it isn't just about wrestling. Like every other distinguished sports drama, this movie utilizes its base subject as a springboard to discuss something more. This movie is about family, tragedy, love, adversity, self-discovery. I really loved and connected with this movie, and I have to be totally honest, it's not an easy watch. And that's okay. This movie is better for it. Going into this one, I was vaguely familiar with the story of the Von Erich family, so I sort of knew what I was getting myself into, but that didn't make it any easier to digest. If you're not familiar, this film is about Fritz Von Erich, a professional wrestler and promoter based out of Dallas, and his sons who all inevitably join the family business. The kicker is that this family is afflicted by what is commonly referred to as the Von Erich curse. Is it an actual supernatural force that surrounds this family, causing unrelenting chaos and misfortune, or is it just a string of extremely unfortunate events? The jury is still out. I'm not one to put stock in the paranormal, but I feel like you can never say never. Anyway, the Von Erichs are a family that was struck by persistent catastrophe as they would lose all of their sons except for one by 1993. Now, in reality, Fritz had 6 sons: Jack, Kevin, David, Carrie, Mike, and Chris. In the film, Chris is omitted. Because of the dark nature of these events, the director, as well as Kevin Von Erich, the only living son, thought it made sense to take Chris out since his story and death so closely relate to that of Carrie's. And it makes sense when you watch this film. It would have been a little too much for the audience to take in. Jack is also only in the movie briefly in a flashback and premonition, as in reality he died at the age of 6 well before the events of this film happened. So this movie really involves these 4 brothers, their relationship with each other, and their relationship with their father. I've got to say, no matter how prepared I was going into this film, it is heartbreaking watching each brother's story unfold. Each one of them trying to impress their demanding and impossible to please father. Each one trying to uphold their proud family name, all while dealing with their own inner turmoil. Each one just trying to obtain some semblance of peace in their lives. And the writing and direction from Sean Durkin, they're both just so emotional, poignant, and impactful. This film is so beautifully shot and so well acted. There's a scene that was present in the first trailer of this film, where Zac Efron's character, Kevin Von Erich, steps back into the ring after a prolonged absence, and he warms up by bouncing back and forth between the ropes of the ring. The cinematography in that scene alone is just gorgeous. A lot of the best shots in this film, they're so intimate, and you feel a sort of deep connection to these characters because of it. In regards to the performances, there isn't a bad one to be found. The always incredible Jeremy Allen White, hot off his Emmy win for The Bear, is fantastic as Carrie Von Erich. Harris Dixon, who you may recognize from The Kingsman, is electrifying as David Von Erich. Stanley Simons, who was an unknown, at least to me, and honestly I think this might be his first major role, was so good as the youngest and most sympathetic brother, Mike. Holt McElhenney plays the brother's relentless and stoic father, and from what I've read, his real-life persona was less the overbearing and forceful parent than what we see play out on screen, but I understand you need a villain-type figure, and at least in the movie it does explain some of the situations that influences these characters' lives and the events that surround them. But who knows what is true? Lily James, one of my favorite actresses working today, plays Kevin's wife, Pam, an integral character that really keeps Efron's character grounded. And the absolute standout in this film, no surprise because everyone talked about it when it released, is Zac Efron as Kevin Von Erich. I know he's always gotten sort of a bad rep because, he started his career in High School Musical and had this avoidable string of bad comedy films where he always seems to play the goofy, muscle-headed jock type character. But I genuinely think he is a good actor. And man, Zac Efron shows it here. You really feel it when he has to stand by while all of his brothers lose their lives in such tragic events. It's hard not to relate to this character because his story is one that I think everyone can understand and empathize with. He's just a man trying to make his way through life the best way he knows how. He wants nothing more than to settle down, raise a family, and create their own little haven where they can all be together. And that dream is just constantly getting thrown into disarray from the continuous catastrophes that vex this family. And when I stated earlier that this movie is tough to watch, I meant it. Look, I am the youngest of 5, and 3 of my siblings are brothers. And I'm close with every single one of them. And we've all gone through so much together. Sure, I don't understand the pain that these siblings suffered through in real life. I don't know the tragedy of losing a sibling. I'm lucky that I haven't had to experience that. But on a base level, as someone who has gone through hardships with his family, it's hard not to identify with the characters in this film. I know it seems like this movie is just a non-stop gut punch, and I will admit, while watching, I even questioned why I was putting myself through it because at points, it didn't seem like there was going to be any sort of uplifting resolution. It may take a while to get there, but the final scene is equal parts painful as it is uplifting. In the final scene, we see Zac Efron's character, Kevin, watching on as his 2 sons play catch with a football. And he weeps as he observes them laughing and playing together. And when his sons walk over to comfort him, they ask him what's wrong. And he admits to them that he misses having brothers, and he misses being a brother himself. And that scene absolutely broke me, and Efron nailed the emotional weight necessary to carry it. And just when you think this movie has hit the absolute bottom of this endless pit of suffering, his sons look him in the eye and tell him that from now on, they're going to be his brothers. And at this moment, you realize that even though he's been through so much pain and tragedy, even through all of it, he still managed to somehow find happiness that he was seeking this whole time. A family of his own, and it's truly inspiring regardless of how much I cried like a baby through it all. Even though we're about a year late, I highly recommend The Iron Claw. While not the easiest watch, it's a satisfying and encouraging watch nonetheless. I think even those who aren't privy to the world of sports and professional wrestling will still find aspects to appreciate from this gorgeous film and its phenomenal performances. In my opinion, it's not only one of the best films of 2023, but I would go so far as to say that it's one of the best sports dramas I've ever seen.